Okay, so welcome to episode 3 of Daughters of the Corner podcast. My name is Lauren, and today I have a guest who goes by Jenna. Just tell me a little bit about yourself and tell me what led you to want to be a guest on this podcast.
So I am from like a smaller suburb, probably about 8 hours north of Denver. I do have a dog in the background. Sorry if you can hear her. But so I moved to a bigger city when I graduated college 2008, and I moved to a bigger city. And I was just like really tired of living paycheck to paycheck. The degree that I had, unfortunately, wasn't really paying a lot, still not paying very well. And just I guess like the glamorization of it all, watching people pop bottles and wear red bottoms and drive Benzes and all the things.
Mm-hmm.
And so I initially didn't think like I thought I could get into the business by myself. I didn't necessarily like pimps to me didn't make sense, but I felt like I did want protection. I did feel like that was necessary.
Mm-hmm.
So, in the beginning, I dealt with guys that ran the street who weren't necessarily pimps that were watching my back, and I was like kind of throwing them a couple dollars here and there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I guess before I go off, because sometimes I ramble a little bit, but before I go off on a tangent, but yeah, I just got in just because tired of living paycheck to paycheck and being broke and watching other people get money. I hung around strippers, dancers, hung around girls who were hustling. I used to drive girls to their calls and
Mm-hmm.
see what they made, and it was just kind of, I don't know. I always liked the fast life, being that I grew up kind of sheltered, grew up in the
Yeah.
suburbs. The streets are always kind of appealing to me. So.
Yeah. So how old were you when you like first got introduced to the game and like how did you go about like becoming friends with these kind of people? Like what initiated you into that lifestyle?
So I was old, according to the people in the
According
game,
to
right?
the game standards.
Yes. So I was 31.
Hmm.
And so people thought I was nuts and they didn't understand because, I had a college degree and I could get a job. And yeah, I could get a job. But,
Hmm.
making $20, $30 a day at Denny's was hard.
Hmm.
I always kind of ran around with hood guys that were hustlers in the street. Not any like big time guys
Hmm.
making a couple $100 a day, probably.
Hmm.
If they made any more, I didn't know. They always kind of kept it from me, which was interesting. I didn't really have too many like boyfriends or guys that I was dealing with that like um, really let me up close to what they were doing. And if they did, it was like uncomfortable and I wasn't interested in,
Hmm.
being that involved. But always just kind of hung out with girls that were fast, even from high school,
Hmm.
girls that were promiscuous,
Hmm.
um, doing drugs. I was doing drugs. I started using drugs in high school. I grew up in an area where it was like there wasn't really much to do, so that's what we did. And I didn't really, when I think about it, it was like I was never really taught how to regulate my emotions. So
Hmm.
it was like I'd either stuff them down or numb them by getting high or
Hmm.
whatever. And I didn't really think about the impact drugs were having. I was just doing them, and what I liked was uppers. It kept me up. I could do what I needed to do, but it was funny because I would be up and then not do anything.
Yeah.
So it's like I didn't
Yeah.
even accomplish what I thought I was going to accomplish. But yeah, always just kind of around with people in the street. And, guys made, like when I moved to a bigger city, they definitely, even I lived in San Francisco for a little while. I was definitely, I wouldn't say like a target, but I definitely dated guys that tried to like make those
Hmm.
suggestions like, oh, you could do this or you could do that. And because I was older and bigger, I never really considered the strip club.
Yeah.
Never really considered camming or any of the like, I guess, legalized forms of sex
Hmm.
work. So, but yeah, the guys that tried to turn me out, they just were funny to me. I just was like, whatever. And like, didn't really follow through with what they were saying. And, oh, I can't do that. And I don't know how that would work for me or how I'd feel about myself. So it took a while before I actually like made the step, but it was watching my homegirls do it and seeing the money that they made, the freedom that they had, or the supposed freedom that they had. But a lot of them were survival. A lot of them were hustling to get the money for eviction or their drugs or whatever.
Yeah.
I just never had friends that were really on top of their game,
Hmm.
healthy, mentally stable.
Yeah.
And neither was I. So it wasn't like awkward or odd to me. So,
Yeah.
but I think I met my first situation being pimp online. So,
What did you meet
tagged
him on like a social media site or?
there's a dating site called Tagged.
Tagged. Okay.
Yeah, so
I met mine on Facebook, so yeah.
yeah, so you can see in their bio what time it is. And that
Hmm.
attention was like great to me. And I mean, I knew what it was, I
Hmm.
knew that what they were trying to do. So it wasn't like I felt like they pulled the wool over my eyes by any means. But the first guy I met, I had been in the business for about 6 years, excuse me, six
Hmm.
months. He just kind of put me down for how I was hustling. I was kind of staying at my friend's baby daddy's house. He was giving me rides to calls. It was nuts. I'd
Hmm.
pay him a couple bucks to give me rides, and I wanted to be around him when I got a call so that I could go. I didn't have to like wait for him to come pick me up. So he wanted a choosing fee, and I had some money, but not a lot. Out here, I don't have it how it is anywhere else, but they don't care if you don't have like a big fee; they'll take you
Yeah.
anyways.
Because they're like, if you
Um,
don't have it, you can make it kind of thing. So yeah.
Correct. Or like, what was the term that he pay it off or something like that? He wasn't like that, but I think I
Hmm.
gave him like, what is crazy is I had just gotten fired from a really good job for being late, and had already been posting ads and just
Yeah.
watching my phone and thinking, oh God, like I'm missing all this money sitting in this office, and I'm already promiscuous. I'm already using drugs. I'm already out in the streets. So like, why not? Right. So
Hmm.
when I met him, he just, the attention was nice. I went to his house. He had his own apartment. And he had I'll never forget this. He could lock his door to where you couldn't leave. And I
Mm.
remember thinking like, mm,
That's a little
mm,
strange, no?
right. But I never felt like scared around him. It was weird. So I gave him $100 to
Mm-hmm.
choose up, which is not normal. Like
Hmm.
normally they're like 1,000 and up, but whatever, right? So
They say that. They say that because they like to try to create a standard, but a lot of them don't really care. Like they
right. Well,
have,
and then the one told me 10,000 once, and I was like, if I had $10,000, I wouldn't be
oh,
coming to you.
was he like a rapper, a low key like Z-list rapper or something? Because for the most part, usually those types of pimps are usually the ones that have those crazy numbers.
Yeah, he was from Vegas, had a couple of girls already.
Mm.
They were younger. He didn't look at me as like a moneymaker, so I was like, figure it out. And it was like
Hmm.
I make decent money, but like it's different than somebody who's 20 and in the club in Vegas.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
yeah. But went to the house, gave him the money, and I had cashed out my 401k, and he saw me with all these bags. So I cashed out my 401k because I had lost my car had gotten impounded, a
Oh,
bunch of
okay.
like random stuff had happened. So I cashed out my 401k, which it wasn't a lot, but it was like two, maybe 1,000, 1,500 or something like that.
Hmm.
And he saw me shopping and doing this stuff. So he was disrespected that I gave him the 100. So I admitted that I had more money. And so I
Oh.
gave him more. Right. And then that was that. I went to work. I was with him for not long. He didn't know what he was doing. And I felt smarter than him. Actually,
Mhm.
intellectually, I was smarter than most of them.
Yeah,
So, like,
same.
yeah, so it's hard. He was abusive. He put his hands on me, but not in a way that I was scared. It was just kind of like, and I shouldn't say that because it's still scary to think about, but like
Hmm.
if I talk back to him or whatever, he would smack me and stuff like that.
Hmm.
Um, Never around. Um, Acted
Hmm.
like, sleeping with me or being intimate with me was a big deal, or getting me my nails done, or even taking me shopping. He's very cheap.
Hmm.
I remember one time I went down to a city like an hour and a half away. A lot of the girls travel here. There's a lot of working girls here in the city.
Hmm.
And so a lot of times it was easier to make money if you travel. So I remember losing my bag and him only allowing me to get like the little tiny soaps and the little tiny
Like the
shampoos, like
travel
the
sized ones?
I didn't
Girl.
understand that. And it was just like, okay, it was kind of like punishment for losing my stuff is kind of how I felt, but it never changed. It wasn't like, oh, we're going to
Hmm.
punish you for a week and then you get the regular stuff. It never went back to that. So he ended up getting a vehicle, but it was because he had gotten a school loan. He used the loan to get the vehicle and then was using my money. He admitted to me he was getting evicted. So the
Hmm.
first trip I took out of town, all of that money was to save his eviction. At that time, I was using hard drugs. And I had been, like I said, I've been in the business for about 6 months. I'd already been walking the street on my own.
Hmm.
I live on the track, a well-known track, so it wasn't hard just to like leave the
Yeah.
house and go make some money. I don't know, it felt good to take care of somebody,
Yeah.
and he was grateful, and he was around all the time. He would be with me on the road, which I thought was fun and exciting. And
Yeah.
but a couple months into it, it's like I barely see him. He doesn't know how to manage multiple women.
Hmm.
One of them somebody ended up choosing up, and I had to like babysit her kid. Sometimes her kid would be in the other room while we were doing
Mm.
dates and stuff, and that was
Hmm.
really awful and awkward. And one night, I opened up to her about how he was cheap, and like he always had the best stuff, and I had like the basic, And she'd had
Hmm.
like a really good money day one day and was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna go tear down the mall." I was like, "Girl, he ain't gonna let you do that," you know. So she snitched on me for calling him cheap. Yeah, so it's one of those where like I want to be better than her, and I
Oh,
want him to like
Lord.
me more, and all this extra.
Lord,
So
girl. Mm-mm.
he
Okay.
fired me
He
and hit me in the
fired
process
you because you
for
called.
that.
Holy crap. Okay.
Yeah, so and I'm like, you have a free in call with me because at this point, and this is
Mm-hmm.
what's crazy. I'm a homeowner.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a college educated. Like this is like, what was I doing?
Yeah.
So we've always worked out of my house.
Mm-hmm.
So she was working out of my house and she was walking and doing the thing and I was babysitting and you want to fire your person with a free in call and babies? Say okay, see you later. And
It's a pride thing. They're literally just trying to prove a point. And I don't want to say he fired you like it was a bad thing because God knows now looking back at it, it was probably like looking at it like, oh, that was great. But in the moment,
uh,
it's like you did that because of what? But they're all about pride and it's, saving their
yeah,
image and
right.
maintaining macho man kind of thing. But yeah.
Yeah. And he was the type to, I would make some good money and then he would go party with women that weren't paying him. And that was always a problem with me because I would see
Yeah.
pictures of him in clubs in hotel rooms with women that weren't paying him and
Yeah.
I didn't get to go. I was never invited. So I always felt
Girl.
like older, bigger, unattractive, even though like I find myself attractive in the back of my head. I was like, I knew like they're paying to be with me. So there's that felt like something to me.
Hmm.
And I was at such a low place in life being that I was using hard drugs, didn't have a direction in life. And when I met him, he was like, "You're not doing that anymore." So every situation I had did not allow me to use hard drugs. So I saw
Hmm.
that as love. But really,
Hmm.
that's just we want to make sure you're healthy so you can work more, so you can earn me more money. That
Hmm.
was never like, we care about your health.
Bro,
So,
I just want to say there's like so many similarities between your situation and the situation I went through in regards to like, the intimacy thing, like even just what you just mentioned. And I'm just like, oh my God, I completely empathize with you. But go ahead.
oh, yeah,
Um,
no, thank you. Yeah, the intimacy felt like you worked for it, like you earned it. Him, it was
yeah.
like I got just enough. Like he'd
Hmm.
lay with me for a little bit, or
Hmm.
he would hook up with me every now and again, but he had
Hmm.
children and he had children with a woman that's not a working girl. So
Yeah.
that was a clear message that like I would never have children with you because you're a hoe. So that was
Yeah.
tough. I wanted
And
kids.
one of the things that used to really get under my skin was like, oh, would say, oh, we love our hoes, but like you don't. First of all, you don't know what love is. And you do not love these women. You love what they do for you. Because if you really love them, you would not want them to be working in the street. You would not be promising them these things and then be lying to them about it. And you obviously would not be making them work for your affection. And I thank God that my pimp withheld sex from me because if he would have given me the intimacy I wanted as much as I wanted it, I would have never left. I would have
Yeah.
been in that situation probably till now because it was that intimacy that I desired that he never gave me, which is what pushed me to the edge to say, okay, I'm done with this. I do all this for you. I pay for everything. I literally go so hard to make sure that everything is covered. You don't ever have to worry about money. And the only time you do is because I get to a point where I become so depressed because you never follow through on the things that you promised me. So then I get in this cycle and then it just got to a point where I'm like, okay, he would do the same thing. He would sleep with square women, be going out with square women, playing this, I love you, we're gonna get married, all these roles, and like seeing all of that and learning what a narcissist was what really woke me up to what he and what most pimps, I want to say what all pimps do. They're narcissists. They are solely about them. They really know how to say things to make it seem like everything is sweet and to promise
Yeah.
you the world. And then when you get there, it's like they do not even the bare minimum because they don't even do the bare minimum. Like you're taking my money, you're doing whatever you want with it, you're treating me like crap, and then I have to just sit here and take everything and not say anything. And if I complain about another girl that you're treating another girl better than me, I'm a square or I'm a fag or I'm a whatever. And I'm just
Right.
like, okay, all
We
right.
have we had a saying out here was "Ho say no say." So
Mm-hmm.
it was like you would like there's times where I get smacked up or get cussed out because I remember the first folks that I paid, the first would come around and he'd be on my neck. And one time I
Mm-hmm.
said, why don't you just like save for the first? I
Mm-hmm.
got smacked for that. And it was just like, I don't understand. Like I'm making enough to pay your bills and mine,
Mm-hmm.
and having a free in call where you didn't have to pay for a hotel, but you want to look popping and you want to buy all these things and do all this stuff. And that's great. So do I. But
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember ever really going shopping, or if I did, it was like the flea market or the swap market or, some low end, which was fine. That's what I was used to doing for myself. So I didn't really think
Mm-hmm.
about it. And I also knew I wasn't, I hate to admit this, but it's the truth. I was low end in the beginning. So I wasn't upscale. I wasn't 1,000 an hour. And that doesn't make any difference either because I've seen those girls pay pimps and not get treated any better either.
Listen, that whole scale of being low end, high end, first of all, we're all doing the same thing. Whether you make $1,000 an hour or whether you make
Correct.
$250 an hour or
Right.
whatever you make an hour, you're still paying a pimp who does not care about you at the end of the day. And I hate that we use that low end, high end thing to divide
Right. Right.
women, which is like at the end of the day, who's really gonna look out for us if it's not each other? Because these men do not
Right.
care. And it's
Right.
so one of the terms whole drama, they're like, oh, don't include me in whole drama. You're the reason there's whole drama, but okay.
Right, right. Well, and I think the class that I speak to, I told them he loved me as much as any boss would love a long-term employee. You know what I'm saying? Like
Period. Right.
he cared about me and took care of me in a sense. Because my last one, the reason I stayed so long is because he was so different from everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
Every time I handed him money, it was thank you. He was very grateful, and he had all these ideas and these goals and all these things, and you had all these ideas. Yeah, that's great. And we're gonna do that and all these plans. Some of the
Mm-hmm.
stuff did end up coming to fruition, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in his name, in his bank
Mm-hmm.
account, that
Of
was controlled
course.
by him.
Of
So,
course.
like,
Because it's
I
their
was
way of
still an
keeping you
employee.
locked in forever. They don't ever want you to leave. They want it's literally slavery. They want you to be there forever. Because what are you getting out of it? You're working
Right.
for them basically for free. Because all
Yeah.
of the money that you could be making, like you could be supporting yourself, but at the end of the day, it's going to a man that we pay for whatever reason, whether it be affection or protection or whatever I want to say convinced ourselves or what they've convinced us of.
I think mine was more for I feel like now in hindsight I was paying for love. I felt like, well, I'm a
Hmm.
prostitute that walks the street who's going to want to be with me, and I was using hard drugs. So
Hmm.
um I did that 4 month stint with that gentleman. I left, did my own thing, and really thought I was somebody for a while because I was taking trips to different places on
Hmm.
my own. I ended up getting caught up in a city far from home, and it was like that I didn't have anybody to call. And that's
Hmm.
me think, oh God, if I had folks or a pimp, maybe I could call
Hmm.
him and he would do all this stuff for me. Girl, I bought my own ticket home. They didn't take me to jail. They didn't kick me out the hotel. They gave me a
Hmm.
ticket, told me to come back for court. So that ticket, I came home and I got busted here.
Hmm.
And so I had to go to a class here. And
Hmm.
that's where I met the bottom of this particular gentleman. And like I was telling you earlier, she just had all the things and
Hmm.
looked happy. Come to find out, she was miserable, right?
Hmm.
So I'm friendly. I don't mind talking and networking. You have a class of hoes, of course. We're going to network. And that's what I don't understand about the class is like you guys are trying to get us out the business, but you put a bunch of working girls in a room and expect us not to make friends and go work together or to recruit each other. So I had asked her, I was drunk one night, had about 100, $150 to my name.
Hmm.
And I said, does he take big girls?
Hmm.
Well, you got to work out, you got to walk the track. I was already walking the track. So I said, okay. So
Hmm.
they invited me over, bought me an Uber, and he happened to live behind me, 3 blocks behind me. He lived in the same neighborhood, didn't know. Showed up. There was two other women there. One of them had cooked like a really amazing meal. I sat down at the table with all of them and was like, oh, because I'm
What?
used to them lying and like having other women, but not like keeping us separate and like
Hmm.
kind of pitting us against each other, which I never understood.
Hmm.
But this person wanted the family atmosphere, which was also just as bad as being separate. I don't know, it's weird. So the girls were always like, according to the game, better looking than me, younger than me, better bodies,
Hmm.
made more money than me. But he told me he appreciated me because I always tried.
Hmm.
And that felt important to me.
Hmm.
So I could bring home $200 and the other
Hmm.
woman could bring home 1,500 and he didn't treat me any less. Now she hated that, of course.
Yeah.
But like, and of course she might get red bottoms. I'm not getting that, because I'm
Hmm.
not making that. But and I that made sense to me. But she was in love with him. His bottom was in love. So
Hmm.
we didn't really like played together as far as intimacy. Even though I had my own home, I slept on their couch for months. I don't know. I just wanted to be around him.
Yeah.
He took me to dinner about a couple weeks after. Well, I had the 150, so I gave him that.
Mm-hmm.
He told me it was 1,000,
Mm-hmm.
and I talked to him, and we privately arranged for me to work it off or
Of
whatever.
course. Yeah.
So I went home and I laid down in my bed, and I said, "What did I just do?" I had a friend staying with me on the couch, and she was like, "Girl, what?" And I was like, I don't know, And this wasn't my first go round, so people
Yeah.
were just like, "Oh, whatever, you're gonna pay him a couple months and then be gone."
Mm-hmm.
And that wasn't the case. So he ended up making me kick my friend out because she wouldn't choose up, and he wasn't going to pay for her, or help her out, or let her stay here. So that was really
Mm-hmm.
hard. I put her stuff on my porch. She's since then passed away, and we made amends before she passed away. So
Mm-hmm.
that was amazing. But the next day, it took me to get my nails done. And it took me to some calls that night. I made some money that night, and he was super excited and grateful and thankful, and yeah, and woo, and I was a part of something. I felt like I was a part of a family. I felt like I belonged, even though I didn't feel like I belonged.
Yeah.
So he sent me out of town. I made really good money out of town. I don't make good money where I'm from, or not from, but where I'm living. So he sent me out of town. I did really well. They were excited about that. The bottom was probably excited because she didn't have to carry the weight. I now know
Mm-hmm.
what that means, So,
Yeah.
but ultimately, he's using her money to take care, like do the nails for me until I can make some money. And
Yeah.
so I think that was
Yeah.
hard for her to make a lot of money and me not make as much and get treated the same.
Mm-hmm.
She actually liked me. We got along, but very competitive, very like, how
Yeah.
much did you make today? And threw it in my face. And if I made more than her, that was a big deal. If I didn't make more than her, it was a big deal. Like it was always a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she left after 5 years of being with him. She left 4 months in.
Oh, wow.
So that put me in a position to be the main. And
Yeah.
I didn't know what to do with that. And I didn't want that position. From then on, it was nuts. I was the older, more mature person. So unfortunately, I did recruit. I don't feel good about that today. I have to work through
Mm-hmm.
some of that because they trusted me. I was older, I was mature. I told him how great he was, and he helped me get in shape. He helped me get off the drugs. I'm sober kind of because I did the work. I know I did the work, but
Mm-hmm.
he kicked that off. So I don't know where I would be without that. And
Yeah.
I stayed because I thought I owed him because of that.
Mm-hmm.
He helped me lose 100 pounds. My money doubled, almost tripled, and I thought I was somebody. So um, I went home. I'm now for 300 pounds. I'm now 170 pounds, and people are thinking I'm popping. I got all the clothes. I'm driving a Benz.
Mm-hmm.
I got the chains and all this stuff. He was great when it came to that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That's not great. That's manipulation to keep you around because
Yeah.
where's the investing? Where's the savings? Where's anything in your name?
Yeah. When did you realize that it was manipulation, and what were like some things that he did in order to keep you there?
That's interesting because I knew it from the jump. I knew what he was doing from the very jump. And that's what's hard about me is I'm so freaking aware that it was miserable because it was like, well, nobody's going to accept me. So he's going to accept me, but I have to do this, but I'm getting this, right?
Mm-hmm.
He didn't really have to do much, but he definitely he was my age, came from a good family. I don't want to say too much about his family to identify him, but came
Yeah.
from the suburbs. Like what? So like he had a chance to do a lot of different things like me, very smart, educated, well spoken, really dressed well. People respected him, even knowing what he did. His family
Mm-hmm.
knew what he did. Funny, I came to a function at his family's house, and the mother told me, I know what you do, but I pray for you. Ma'am, you need to pray for your son. So
Baby. Oh my goodness.
so she's
First of
seeing me
all.
lose weight. She's seeing me get sober, and oh, he's
Mm-hmm.
just changing, doing all these good things. Yeah, to
Mm-hmm.
make money off of me, ma'am.
Yeah.
But the family thing was an important piece of the manipulation. He brought me around the family. I met his mom.
Mm.
I met his siblings. I was there for holidays. I was there for his birthday. I was here, whatever. So his mom ended up needing some help. And because I was able to hold it down, he was able to go over there and help her.
Mm-hmm.
But I knew from the jump, I just felt like, well, I felt like I was getting something out of it. He
Mm-hmm.
helped me get sober. So that stuck with me. Helped me get in shape. I felt really good about myself.
Mm-hmm.
I had never been that small since like high school. So that felt good. But the manipulation was more so like you get to live a life you can't live on your own because you have multiple incomes.
Mm-hmm.
And even if we didn't have multiple incomes and it was just me, he still made it look like we were balling when we weren't, and I
Mm-hmm.
don't know how he did that. So he was really good, in my opinion, at that time, managing money. I
Mm-hmm.
felt like he provided the stability, even though I was the
Yeah.
stability.
Yeah.
But yeah, so just we would go out. People knew who he was. They saw us with him. They knew what it was. People thought we were fancy, and it felt good. It felt like I said, a part of something. I wanted
Mhm.
somebody to love me. And that's what I tell that class when I speak to them is I have to look at how did I get to a place where I felt like I had to pay for love,
Yeah.
where I felt like I had to pay somebody to give it about me. I was walking the street. I was the first street walker he ever had because he had upscale ladies that were doing escort agencies and
Hmm.
stripping and all this stuff. And he didn't treat me any different. Didn't treat me like it was dirty, gross, or like some of these other folks had. And
Hmm.
some ladies can't come off the street unless they make a certain amount of money. They'll be out there for days. He wasn't like that. I would
Yeah.
do and that was manipulation too, where it was
Yeah.
like, oh, I'm only out here 8 hours. That's just like a regular work shift.
Hmm.
Girl, a regular work shift is not on the corner. So
You,
I'm like, what are you
period.
doing?
Hmm.
But here's the thing, never protected me out there,
Yeah.
didn't teach me how to work out there. So
Yeah.
I had to figure all of that out on my own. And I had kind of figured that out before I got to him. So
Hmm.
it's kind of like, oh, well, online isn't working for me. So I'm going to
Hmm.
go down there and do this. But once I showed him I could do that, then it was an everyday 6, 7 days a week, 8, 10 hours a day. But I thought that was great because there was women that were getting beat if they didn't make enough,
Hmm.
legs raw from walking for days, don't even have guys, not even giving them money for condoms or tampons or anything. He
Hmm.
took care of us in that sense. And so that was part of the manipulation too, is like, oh, I get these
Hmm.
nice things and I can come home and shower and smoke a blunt with him and take a little break and
Yeah.
get a little chain or whatever if I had a good day or
Yeah.
whatever.
That's definitely
Yeah.
part of it because I that was something that intrigued me into it too. I'm like, oh, I've been struggling financially. Like everything else in my life could be okay, seemingly okay, but like I want that. I want to be like, it was the city girls. And I'm kind of ashamed to say this because when I met my pimp, he wasn't my pimp. He was technically my man or whatever.
Yeah.
But when I met him, this is when like the city girls had become real popular and where the bag at? I need a who gonna swipe them visas. And I was like, I want that. I
Yes.
want that. I want the money. I want the fancy. I want this and I want that. And I'm like, I'm so tired of being a basic B or whatever. That was my mentality.
Yeah.
So I completely understand. I just want to ask, like, how long were you with him? And like what was the camel, I mean, what was the
It was
straw
rough.
that broke the camel's back? Like what made you say I'm done?
Yeah. 7 years, no
Hmm.
breaks. Um, Now,
Hmm.
mind you, breaks, yes, come home, take a day off or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
But being that I was older and bigger, the game was kind of rigged against me because I wasn't aesthetically tiny and young and whatever.
Hmm.
So he was just like, hey, we have to make every move calculated. There was nobody that stayed longer than about 5 years. So around 5 years is when I started noticing stuff, and I'd already gotten a tattoo by then, which I just
Hmm.
got covered. So amazing.
Hallelujah.
Yeah, I tried to get it removed laser. Woo! So it was worse than the tattoo. So yeah, about 5 years in, he started being less responsible. I came outside, the Hummer that was in my name was gone. Didn't discuss it with me. It got repoed.
Hmm.
I had gotten raped in that Hummer by a client.
Hmm.
And so I allowed the client to do all the things without fighting and running because in my head, I'm like, oh my God, we put all this money down and I can't lose the car. He's going to be mad. And then he let it go like it was nothing. We got into an argument over it. At that time, he was kind of letting me get away with yelling at him because I was just like, what the fuck? Like, why wouldn't you tell
Hmm.
me? I'll go figure it out and get the
Hmm.
money to cover whatever because that's our job, I guess, right? He would overfinance a lot of things, and then the girls would leave, and it would be on me. And I couldn't carry the weight. He ended up
Hmm.
moving in with me at one point because I couldn't carry the weight of two homes.
Hmm.
At one point, there was 3 women and him, and 2 dogs and myself in a 1 bedroom.
Oh my God.
Um, I didn't understand that. I didn't understand why we couldn't get a house. He wasn't like all these things for the first 5 years. He wasn't
Hmm.
following on, regardless of the trips and the jewelry and the bags. The bags were all fake. He said
Hmm.
nobody would question it. So they were all $100 fake bags. And I,
Hmm.
I thought they were cool. I didn't care. So
Hmm.
pulling up in a Benz felt good. I didn't care. My family was like, and I just made it sound like we're poly because that's usually a good enough cover, right? Um,
Hmm.
got another woman pregnant during that time. The first time one of my wifeys or coworkers or whatever you want to call
Hmm.
them
Yeah.
got her pregnant the first time they had sex. Me and him had
Jeez.
been trying to have kids for a while. Yeah, so it was pretty devastating. She wanted me to be there for her and comfort her, and I was like, y'all can figure that out over
Mm.
there. He blamed me for
I'm
that, basically.
struggling with that. Okay.
Yeah, so he had blamed me like, oh, it's supposed to be her first, and kind of used me as manipulation to the other girl. The other girl, he forced her to have an abortion. She decided not to leave and keep it. She had the abortion. And then every year we had to deal with her being sad on Mother's Day and sad on the date. And I just quite frankly didn't have the capacity to care about any of it because I was so burnt out. But yeah, around five
Yeah.
years, he started not paying bills, started not really like, I would say, hey, like, I'd really appreciate it if you didn't have so and so stuff in my room. Come home, all be in my room, or move a woman in that I'd never even had a chance to meet. Or these women would have other places, like a weekly or an apartment. Oh, just come stay with us. He was very Captain Save a Ho, and I was
Yeah.
very much like that too. Like, oh, come here, he'll treat you good, and it was like people didn't know the truth. They just saw the cars. We had the two businesses I mentioned to you, and I was a success story. I was older, so he after being raped 3 times, 2 or 3 times, robbed a couple of times. Every day was a fight. Every day was a struggle. I had PTSD. I had to get up and go to work because at that time I was the only person or the only woman paying him. I was by myself out of the 7 years for about 5 months. It's really hard, but didn't matter. He was not somebody like these girls, these other women working with him, lied on me, stole from me, sometimes wanted to fight me. He was pretty good at like mediating, but I still had to work with them, live with them,
Yeah.
recruit them, teach them. Most of the women came off of me and off of Facebook, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So they saw how we were living, wanted to be a part of that. But let's just say you make 15,000 a month. He's not buying you red bottoms. He's not buying you brand name. You have to stay down for that. It doesn't matter what you made. He wasn't gonna get you the things. And then 5 years later, I still didn't even have the things.
Yeah.
So it took me about a year and a half, 2 years, crying and yelling and screaming and being out of pocket and sleeping with other men because I was just so affection starved. He never, I mean, there was a hug and maybe a kiss on the cheek, but there was nothing other than that. We would have sex maybe once a month, 10 minutes. And being older, I couldn't get pregnant that way. And the universe blessed me by not blessing me, fortunately. So I never did get pregnant, thankfully. We definitely tried. I don't even know how that would be right now. But so probably about 5 years in, I was like, I'm not happy. And I told him one day I was not happy, and he said, leave. Oh, okay. Well, I thought maybe we could work. So so I sat on the kitchen floor and I just cried, and it was just like, you don't leave because you invested all this time, all this money, all this. I was not in love with him by any means. He made it very clear what it was. He was not a boyfriend pimp. He was a pimp. He did not play that role. He did not pretend to kiss up on you, make any lies about wanting to marry you. He did do the kid thing. We picked out names, talked about parenting. All that stuff was manipulation as well.
Yeah.
But so I started getting out of pocket about what 5 years in. I started seeing other men behind his back. I have a very close male friend who was very involved. He allowed me to talk to him because we've never been intimate. So he used to like give me advice on how to be out of pocket and not get caught. It was so weird because he was like, he'd be like, if you're gonna do this, don't
get in trouble.
I would just go out recklessly and try to meet guys to like hug up on. He's like, you can't do that. You have to plan ahead or you're gonna get up.
Listen, my pimp used to tell me, and it was the craziest thing because my pimp used to tell me, "Oh, I don't care if you have a boyfriend," but I think it was just because he really wanted me to not like be in love with him, and I'm like, I don't know how to turn that off. Once it's turned on, I would literally have to not ever be around you in order for that to go away, and it was hard because when I met him, the intention was we were gonna have an open relationship, but it was still like it's me and you, and then everybody else comes afterward. So when we transitioned into the game, and it was like, okay, well, we can't ever be in a relationship. And I think honestly, I think there was something in his mind that shifted when we finally got in the game because I guess even in his own messed up way, he did look at me maybe in like a romantic or like I don't know. I don't even know like what the appropriate word for whatever it would be. But he looked at me in a different way. And then once I got into the game, that I feel like that completely shut off. And then it was like, okay, well, now I know that you're willing to be a hoe. It can never go back to the way it used to be. You can never go back to being a square. You are what you are. But once he realized that that was the only reason why I was with him, like the only reason I'm here with you is because I love you. And that's the only reason why I'm doing all of these things is because I love you. Then that's how he used it to manipulate me. He was like, oh, yeah, I love you. He used to tell me, oh, yeah, I love you. Like he used to kiss me on the cheek, on the lips. And then I used to, and it pains me to say, and this is like so shameful, but like I'm still growing from it. I used to have to beg him to sleep with me. And I'm like, do you not understand that that's the only thing that's keeping me here is the fact that we have intimacy in that time of my life. The only way that I could receive love was through sex. I didn't know how to receive love through like words or affirmation or like anything else. My thing, if you want to like do it in comparison to the five love languages, it was physical touch. So if you're not giving me physical touch, then that was what like pushed me away. But it's just so crazy to like hear so many different experiences and like, there's men who do play that role and there's men who don't, and you but even if it's not, maybe not romantic love, we still have some type of respect for them or love for them in order to be doing
Yeah,
all these things for them. Because
absolutely.
at the end of the day, we can sit here and say, okay, I might not have loved you in that way where, I expected to be with you. But I also think that that's us rationalizing the fact that we do love them in some type of way, in some type of
Yeah,
capacity, because you can't sit here and say, aside from like the exception, where people are like, I want to say held hostage in like those situations. And by all means, like I empathize with those people. But for the people who were quote unquote there willingly, we loved them to some extent for us to be doing those things. Because I'm not gonna sit here and sell my body for somebody that I don't care about. Like I'm not gonna,
right.
or that I fear, or maybe even with Stockholm syndrome, because I know a lot of people have that. So
Yeah,
like that's that's something, and we like try to rationalize it, and that was something I tried to rationalize with myself for so long, and I finally just had to accept it. Yes, I loved him, whatever that meant for me at the time. I loved him. Now I have a completely different definition of what love is and what love means, because I've seen true love. Like I understand what the true love of like God is and what that is for
sure.
me. So to experience the love that I had for him and then trying to like suppress that and say, oh no, I don't love you. I don't love you. I can't love you. I can't love you. But I did. I did. And if I didn't, I wouldn't have
Absolutely.
been there. And once
Yeah,
I realized that you were never going to reciprocate that type of energy or that type of love for me, is when I was like, okay, I have to go because I'm dying. I literally feel like I'm dying. I'm dying spiritually, mentally, physically. I'm sitting here, I'm selling my soul for you. And
yeah,
that's not enough. And no matter how much I sell my soul or sell my body or do what I want for you, it will never be enough for you. And we have to understand. Well, I came to an understanding like that's not how love is earned. Love is not earned. Love is gifted. And you can't
right.
buy anybody's love. You can't do all of those things, but like I completely empathize with those people who are like, I want this because I want love. Like, and that's
Yeah,
what gets a lot of us in there, like whether it's like I said, physical or however you receive love in that aspect, whether it's
yeah,
gifts, you know?
yeah. Well, and with him, and I think with most of them, it's never enough for, and it never will
Mm-hmm.
be. You know, you
Mm-mm.
could say, I just got $1,000 off of one guy in my particular situation. He'd be like, oh, that's
Mm-hmm.
a good start. Or like I'd work on my I used to work on my period. I'm not sure if you're familiar with like sponges and
Yeah,
cups and stuff.
absolutely,
So
girl.
I
Mm-hmm.
remember one day, I'd made like $800 and I had a heavy period that day. So I'm like changing my sponges every date and every whatever.
Mm-hmm.
$800 later, I said, can I take a break? And he said, no. And I remember there's little moments like that where I was like, dang, dude, like 800 a day is way bigger than any money I was making at a 9 to 5. But my homeboy at the time was trying to be like, hey, these pimps have to have a cold heart or they have to like hate women to some degree. And I was like, no, he like tried
Mm-hmm.
to give me game the entire time and now we still speak.
Mm-hmm.
I met him in the street before I got in the game.
Mm-hmm.
And so to see him make all the changes and like to have, ooh, I'm gonna get emotional, but to have the love from a man with no sex, like that's the homie. Like that man
Mm-hmm.
picks up for me. If he has the energy and he has the time, because clearly people have boundaries, but
Mm-hmm.
he'll always pick up for me and always like give me the 100 transparent
Mm-hmm.
opinion from a male point of view. And right after I left my folks, I was so stuffed that I asked to choose up with him. And he was like, what?
It's like, girl, no.
He was
I'm
like,
trying to tell you not to do this.
he's like, I already give you like free game. What are you talking about? And he even told me I could hear you were serious in your voice. I was like, yeah, because I love you and I trust you and I know that you're going to have my. And he was like, no, so that was
Mm-hmm.
interesting. But yeah, it was never enough. And he was like, you have to remember, he was telling me, you have to remember and you have to play him in a way like, because he was telling me I was playing fire with fire. You know what I'm saying? So it's like a lot of times we say extra, no, and we're going to get beat up. You know what I'm saying? So, but yeah, it was never enough. And I was like, yeah, and I have a mouth, so I'm gonna say it
Girl,
anyway. I don't care if you pop
I
me.
used to test when I tell you used to test this man, I used to test him because especially when I was drinking, he did not want me to drink alcohol because I turned into truth teller 3000. I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna read you from top to bottom. And he used to hate that. And looking back at it, I'm like, sometimes I wish I could have just kept my mouth shut. I could have saved myself from a lot of
Right.
things. But baby, I used to get my behind whooped. Like,
I wanted to have control so badly that he would offer me floss after a meal and I'd say no.
mm,
Just to be like, you can't tell me what to do all the time, you know? And I think
mm,
back, like, floss is a good thing. Like, why would you even be, you know, but to have that little tiny bit of control. And I think for him and he knew I was smart. He
mm,
knew I knew better, you know what I'm saying? And for him, he had always been a Mac. So even growing up, women were always doing things for him.
yeah.
And
What is floss for those that are listening?
that was just floss for like teeth.
Wait,
Like he
what?
would offer, yeah, so we'd have a
Oh,
dinner and he'd pass out floss. Like he was really like
oh,
this weird health conscious, like, and
girl,
I'd be
I
like,
thought you meant like floss. I thought you meant like the outfits, like a fresh new outfit to walk the blade or
no,
something.
actual floss. And because I didn't want him to feel, I didn't want to feel like I was controlled in every aspect of my life,
Hmm.
I would say no to floss. Like you're not winning if you say
Wow.
yeah. But yeah, that fifth year, sixth year, I started going out and
Hmm.
sleeping with other people for free. And I
Hmm.
found out if I told the men, hey, I would lie to them. And I was always on, what do they say? They call it on auto,
Yeah,
right? So
yeah.
he's had me out on my own,
Hmm.
and well, with the other women, but and that was hard too because I had to lie to them too. So I would tell these guys, "Oh, I got a boyfriend and we're poly and I'm traveling with our girlfriend and like they can't know
Hmm.
and I just want to have fun, but I really like affection." And these guys were like kissing me and touching me in ways I hadn't had, and
Hmm.
so I was just thirsty for it. I'm on
Hmm.
tagged. I'm on these dating sites. I'm meeting these hood dudes.
Hmm.
Very hit or miss, very dangerous. One of them ended up getting killed at his corner store. I could have been there. Like it was nuts. Yeah.
Oh
So
my
uh,
goodness.
yeah, I never got caught, but I turned my location off on my phone. And
Yeah.
he was like, and I didn't know the iPhone notifies the person. So he gets this notification that's like your location. And I was like, I don't know what's going on with my phone. Like, what? That's weird. So I turned my location because at this time, not only am I out of pocket, but I'm also tucking money in a bank account that
Oh,
he
he
doesn't
was
know. I'm
cuffing.
planning on.
Oh, let's talk
So,
about cuffing. What is cuffing?
not giving him everything, right? So
All
not giving
right.
all, and I
And
gave him everything.
in the game that is
You get killed for that.
dangerous.
You
Yes.
get murdered for that.
Yeah,
Yes. So he
absolutely.
was not, like I said, he was not physically abusive, but who knows if he had found out. So I'm like, you see me pulling up to Wells Fargo on my location and I don't have a Wells Fargo account. And my dad was like, is your money? I don't understand. Cause I was telling my dad, he was helping me like put this money away. Cause
Mhm,
yeah, save 10% of all you're making. He's thinking I'm like trying to invest when I'm doing it to get away. So my dad's
mhm.
like, why can't you just say something? It's your money. And I was like, Dad,
That's not
like
how it works.
nothing, you know, and I'm saying I can't get mail to the house about the account. I can't get nothing. Right. So I
Hmm.
figured it out and I put away 10% for
Hmm.
about a year. And I tell the classes that I speak to, I don't do that if you
Yeah,
can't,
no,
don't do that.
yeah.
So I knew what he expected me to produce and I produced that.
Hmm.
So and if it was a little lower because I put the 10%, he wasn't, you know, it's very like up and down. He was
Yeah,
not like a big quota guy. Like if you didn't make your quota,
yeah.
unless you were like in trouble for something, which I didn't really get chopped or in trouble. It was in the beginning when he was like training me. Towards the end, I knew what I had to do and what I needed
Hmm.
to do to keep him happy. And he could tell. So when I turned the location off, he was like, and then the next day he was like, what's up? And I was like, oh, I don't know what happened with my phone. I'm still trying to figure it out. And he let it go. So he was one of those where he told me one time, I'm not going to go through your phone because I know you're doing some bad. And I was. So he didn't
Lord.
care. He didn't care. He just wanted his money. So I had a wifey one time where she wrecked the rental in his name,
Hmm. Hmm.
$10,000
Oh,
bill,
jeez.
then left us to take care of it. Right. Well, me.
Oh.
Right. So guess what he did a month later? She wanted to come back. And I was like, you're letting her come back? He didn't care because he wanted to get that money back.
Oh, girl, when
Right.
I tell you I would have been livid.
Oh, I lost my entire, and he looked me in the face and said, it's a business and I'm going to do what I want to do. Just like when he would have sex with other women in the house. I wasn't always involved and I'm going to do what I want to in the house because this is my house. Even if it was my house, it's my
Yeah,
house.
yeah.
So I didn't always want to play. I like women. I was open to playing with other women, and he called me fake gay one time. I don't want to sleep with every woman that you're sleeping with. So if I didn't want to do that, he's still going to do that. So I would be in my room, and they would be out doing whatever, and it was just that was really really hard to manage my emotions. But as far as like
Girl. Can we
yeah,
talk
as far
about
as the in
that?
love stuff, I wasn't in love with him, but I had mad
Yeah.
respect, mad love, because obviously, like you said, you're not going to go out and do this. I believed in his goals. I believed in his
Mhm.
dreams. I lived through him. I financed the businesses that he has today.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
manipulation goes deep. And I do want at the end to tell folks like, or I shouldn't say folks, but tell people how things are better. How on my worst day is alone is way better than it
Yeah.
ever was with him. Broke, mentally ill, sad, lonely, sober, whatever. I'm
Hmm.
still sober to this day. I will
Thank
give him
God.
that he did, you know. Um,
Listen, I'm gonna thank God because I don't care. Listen, I don't know what your view is on God. I'm Christian and I know a lot of people.
you're
I
good.
don't ever
You're
try to
fine.
force my religion on
I did the
anybody, but
research on you. I'm aware.
I, I've learned a lot about God, and one thing I can say is that even for the people who might not necessarily firsthand believe in Him or Jesus, He still finds a way to bring
Yeah,
His grace and to bring His sovereignty into our lives, whether we know it or not. I want to pray for you to just free yourself from giving that man credit for anything good in your life and give credit to God, because at the end of the
yes.
day, those men were
I
not good people. I don't care. I don't want to give you credit for anything. You don't deserve it. You for the stuff that you put me through, the stuff that you putting other women through, and maybe
yes.
at one point in your life, something went wrong in your life, and that's what made you the person that you are today. But you're not a great person, and I'm not gonna give you credit for something that I put the work in for and that God helped me
Absolutely.
overcome. And I want you to take full credit for what you did and for you overcoming that, because whether or not he was in your life, that was destiny for you to not be on that,
Yeah.
and for you to be here
Thank you.
today, and for you to be alive, and for
Yeah.
you to be
Thank
telling your story and to be a survivor. And I also want to say something to you because earlier when you were talking about, how he had you recruiting people, which is something that they have us all do. I want you to free yourself from that too. Do not hold on to that. Do not hold on to the resentment or the pain or the anger or just the guilt and the shame that you feel from calling other women into the game, because that's something that they call us to do. If we don't do it, it's life or death. And that
Yeah.
right there, if you're not agreeing with them, could be the turning point for them saying, "Oh no, I don't want to deal with you today." And these men are unpredictable. We can say that this man was a good man one day. You never know. They are unpredictable. One day they can
Absolutely.
kill you, one day they can love you. So I
Yeah.
want you to just be completely free of that. And in Jesus' name, that is not your weight. That is not your weight to carry. We're all called to some type of ungodliness in that lifestyle. And once you've
Yeah.
moved on from that, you've rid yourself from that, and you can see that it was not right. That right there is your sign that you are not that person anymore. Because if you
Yeah.
didn't feel guilty for that, then that's a different story. But you feel that you feel like you don't
Yeah.
want to.
Yeah. And thank you for saying that because it's like they trusted me. And like,
Hmm.
I even I've had women that are like, teach me how or show me.
Hmm.
No,
No.
respectfully, no.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And then the drugs and stuff, I know I did the work, and then it's
Hmm.
just like I still give him credit sometimes. And
Hmm.
that's where it's like, I still know that I have a lot of work to do in
Yeah.
regards to that because I've been gone almost about 3.5, 4 years now.
Hmm.
And, he's not here to keep me sober and I'm sober. And so
Hmm.
there's a lot of,
Period.
yes, there's a lot of times where like I think about using
Hmm.
not as regularly as used to, but I think about it and I know where to go get it. I know areas and stuff, and fentanyl out
Hmm.
here is really bad. And
Hmm.
I just remember how I hated myself. And I
Hmm.
feel like if I relapse, he wins. And I don't want to hate myself. So I do work in that field. So
Hmm.
the fact that I was a streetwalker that used drugs, I can walk in as a behavioral health tech or a case manager or a recovery coach or whatever. And I can tell them, dude, I did all of that and
Yep.
it gets better. So, and that's why I want people to know is like, it gets better, it's like,
Hmm.
finding out that there isn't this like peace that I found. It's just finding the peace in the chaos, but living in this home
Absolutely.
and being in this neighborhood is really hard. It's really triggering regularly. And so
Hmm.
I've told people that are in recovery, there's never going to be time where you're not triggered necessarily. It's just
Hmm.
in all in how you deal with it.
Yeah.
So yeah, so the recruiting part, I appreciate you saying that because it was a big deal.
Hmm.
I know I was usually a good at least 6 to 8 years older than most of these women,
Yeah.
and I knew what he was doing. So it was just like the awareness. And even my homeboy now will tell me like, you were so aware that you had to do differently. He said I had to
Listen.
change because I was so aware of how ridiculous I was living.
Hmm.
And as far as like losing the weight, I've gained a lot of the weight back. I definitely eat things and think, oh, he wouldn't like this. I'm gonna eat 10 bags, and find
That's
myself
normal with
screwing
like
myself over.
recovery and stuff too. And especially for like emotional regulation. I've just started learning that the reason why I had gained so much weight was because I was emotionally regulating through food. And that's something that I've
Yeah.
had to
Yep.
break the habit of. And something that helped me overcome that is fasting and praying and just asking God to
Yeah.
deliver me from those demons, because baby,
Yeah.
that's not
Yeah.
healthy. It's not normal. And if it's not healthy, it's not normal, then obviously there's something's got to break from that. So
When I think as far as the higher power thing goes,
Hmm.
the universe, is what I call it, but the universe like literally always looked out for me, but in the most weirdest traumatic ways. Like, we're going to traumatize you until you realize this is not for you. So like the third or fourth rape, I was like, okay, like, okay, and that's finally when he said, well, you're going to stop seeing that type of client. You're going to stop working all night.
Hmm.
You're going to stop. Oh, he cares. Nah, he just was tired of me like crying
Yeah.
at the drop of a hat. I
Yeah.
would lose, like, it would be hard to hear. I'd get PTSD and I couldn't hear,
Hmm.
and just smoking weed all the time to numb that and not feel
Hmm.
that. I didn't process any of the that I went through. So my therapist now is like, hey, I want you to try EMDR to process the stuff, but you're
Yeah.
still not solid in your regulation, and EMDR will make it worse if you don't know how to regulate yourself.
Yeah.
So these last couple of weeks, I tried to take out some of my unhealthy coping mechanisms. It literally had to sit here in tears, just feeling it.
Hmm.
Like, you have
Yeah.
to feel it and you have to
Yeah.
go through it. When I left him, I had a panic attack and I just sat there because it was like, I
But
have
you
to
have
feel
to,
this. Like,
yeah. You can't
yeah.
avoid it. You
So
can't run from it. There's a scripture, Proverbs 20:30 says sometimes it takes a painful experience to make us change our ways. And
yeah.
that
So it was
is
like
that is the
multiple
truth.
times. Yeah, so he ended up, quote unquote, retiring me. We made a big deal about it on Facebook because that looks fancy. And so I ran a business for him for about a year. Still worked my ass off, was still an employee, still had to hand over everything.
Hmm.
The business went really well. Both of the businesses we had went really well. The partner sold it out from underneath us, so I ended up having to come back to the business. And then the other one, he didn't work consistently. My parents didn't understand that. It was just a constant battle the last year and a half.
Yeah.
So I had been tucking, but I was like, I gotta save more and I can't leave just yet, and this, that. And then one night he was out of town with one of the other women on a trip. I was jealous because I didn't get the, like, I was the one who provided the foundation for him to do all these things with other women, and I didn't get
Yeah.
those benefits. So it was hard. But I
Yeah.
was at the house. It was like $700 to my name, which is a lot more than some. So I was like, I gotta go.
Yeah.
So I booked a flight. I was just in here like, okay, like, I booked the flight. I'm leaving, and I had already had a vehicle in another city I was working at. He was planning on having me fly back out, get my
Hmm.
vehicle, and work back on the road again. So he was supposed to come home the next day. I did the flight, took care of everything, separated all my clothes from the other women's clothes, and like tried to clean up and like take care of his dog and do all these things. I got to the airport and I sent him a text and said, I'm
I'm
done.
done. Period.
And he was like, I could tell, was like, what in the so he knew that like things weren't
Yeah.
good.
He
He
knew
knew
it was
I wasn't
coming.
happy.
Yeah.
But the first thing was, you told me you'd never leave.
Oh.
And I did do that. And when I told him that, I knew in my heart of hearts I shouldn't have been saying that. Right. And I was like, yeah, I said that. And I said, things have changed. Well, what has changed? We don't need to have the conversation. You know what's I've been unhappy.
Hello, if you realize it, then you already know that this is not working.
So besides not having any more freedom, not having any more benefits after 7 years, not having, there's a few things he would do. Like, my family wanted to take me to Hawaii, right?
Yeah.
He gave me $100 to go to Hawaii. So my dad
What?
was just like,
Do
yeah.
you
So
know
my
how
parents,
expensive Hawaii is, bro?
that's like a money for the airport. So my family, after they found that out, he was like, my dad was like, oh, because my parents were helping me with the room,
Yeah.
even helped with the ticket, did all this stuff. So why wouldn't you let me like buy them a meal or flex or do some fancy stuff to feel good about myself? But yeah, so nothing really changed. The businesses didn't. He had a million ideas, and he told me one time, your face always you always look like a hater when I have a new idea. Yeah, because my money is going into it and you are not following through. So he had a
Yeah.
lot of great ideas, but he didn't follow through on them. So he was just more concerned about looking a certain way, having a fancy car. And, he allowed the other woman to like invest. She didn't know what she was doing. Here, have
Mm-mm.
$20 and go buy some Bitcoin or go buy a stock. So that was manipulation too. But when I decided to leave, I sent the text and he was like, well, I don't know where you're going, but like, I
Mhm.
hope you're safe. And he didn't ask, told me he was staying in my home in my name, right?
Mhm.
That he's going to stay for another 30 days and then he would be out. So I went on the road and he stayed here for 30 days, told me he would be out on a certain date at a certain time. And a minute before that time came, he sent me a text that said, I'm gone. And that was
Yeah.
that. So he sent me 3 texts that were, why, after all we built,
Yeah.
after all you built in your name. Right.
Yeah.
So I guess the kicker, besides not having the freedom, not having retirement funds, not having IRA or any of those things set up for myself, which my dad was willing to help with, it was the baby. He wouldn't try harder than having
Yeah.
sex with me once a month. And I was like, I want to have children.
Yeah. It
And
was
so,
yeah, like it was like I'm just gonna feed you this lie, and I'm never really gonna follow through or even try to do it for you. I'm just gonna let you think that this is
so we
what's gonna
talked,
happen.
right. And so we
Mhm.
talked about ovulation, and I'm like, I'm tracking it, and you're not having sex with me when you're supposed to.
He's doing it on
And
purpose. It's that's part of the coercion, the
right.
manipulation.
Yeah. So once I found out he wasn't going to try harder as far as go do the extra tests and things, the
Hmm.
other woman got pregnant. It was my fault because, hey, I can get somebody pregnant. It's your fault that you can't get pregnant because my
What
sperm
a
is working clearly.
piece of
Yeah. So towards the end, it was just really hard. I started to hate the both of them. The one bedroom, I had the bed, which was weird, and they would sleep on the couch a lot just because he knew he just wasn't messing with me at that time because I wasn't happy. I was miserable. I was on the phone secretly, texting
yeah.
dudes and doing crazy and tucking money and all this stuff. So um, he came home the next day. He stayed for the month and then he moved out. When I came back to the house, there was a bunch of things. It was a mess. He left things like they had rushed out of here. I didn't really understand important like things from his family.
Yeah.
So it was weird because I'll text him and see if he wants this stuff. And I had to do a lot of self talk. I had to be like, if he wanted it, he would have taken it.
Something that we had talked about earlier that I kind of want to go back and touch on just because it's something that was like it's like burned my heart so much too. Even if for like women who might not necessarily have feelings or like love their parent, just being in the same house as them, being intimate with somebody else when you know they won't be intimate with you. Can we talk about that? Because I feel like it needs to be talked about.
What's the word? In my delusions, watching him be happy with another woman made me happy.
Hmm.
That compersion and poly, I felt like I felt compersion, even though that's
Hmm.
probably not what it was. But towards the end, I didn't really have a problem like watching because he wasn't giving anybody anything more than he gave me, except for the woman that he had
Yeah.
have the abortion. Not the first one, but the second one.
Yeah.
He babied her a lot.
Yeah.
She was very upset about it. So he would cuddle with her, and I would just be like, oh, and other women would notice. And I
Hmm.
would try to downplay it, but he definitely babied her. I don't think because, oh, he loved her more, but to keep her around. She was the
Yeah.
breadwinner.
Hmm.
She made more money than me 99% of the time, $4,000 or $5,000 a week. So of course he's gonna make sure, top employee is good to go. But yeah, like knowing he's having sex in the other room, I would sit and try to cope with YouTube. I remember turning on music and like trying
Hmm.
to drown out any sounds. And
Yeah.
one time I was so friggin' frustrated because I knew he wasn't wearing a condom that I walked out of the bedroom while he was having sex with somebody so they would stop. And he was like, I know why you did that. Yeah, yeah,
There was one time my pimp, um, I had another wifey and he was very like limited to when he had sex with me, or he would only do it when nobody else was around. And I think it was because to me it felt very intimate, and if which is why anytime I imagined him or knew that he was having sex with somebody else, it enraged me because I'm like, if you're doing that with somebody else, it made
yeah,
me
yeah.
so angry. And there was this one time I had a wifey and he was like, "Oh yeah, we'll be done in like 10 minutes." He had me sit in the car while they were doing it because we were at a hotel and we took turns like working out of the room
Oh,
or
I've
whatever.
sat outside the room before. It's awful.
So th he had actually done this a couple times with this one girl, and he was like, "Oh, it'll only be quick." And it 5 minutes turned to 10 minutes, and then 10 minutes turned to 20 minutes. And I went and knocked on the door. I was like, "Are you done yet?" Because I don't know why you have me sitting out here. And I was enraged, and he was like, "You're a fag. You can't do that." Blah blah blah. And I'm like, "Listen, I don't care. You told me that this is what it was gonna be, and if you're gonna be limiting me, then I'm gonna limit you." And
Yeah.
I used to get yelled at. I used to get called all types of names, but I was like, if I can limit their time, there was the last girl that he had before I left him. We were renting an Airbnb, and now this Airbnb it was like real small. It was a two-bedroom, but it was a cozy two-bedroom. Like the room was here and the other room was here and the
Yeah.
bathroom was here. So like I'm in this room while I'm working, he's over there, and while she's working, he's over here. But any time that I was working, he'd be in there getting like
Yeah.
doing stuff with her. And I knew it because she was real pale. So when she used to come out the room, her chest and like face would be red. And then one day I just got so fed up and I was like, what's going on? Like, why is she red? And he was like, oh, like he made up some excuse. And I was like, okay, because I'm stupid. Like, you're doing that, but then I'm over here in this room. And anytime she's working, you come in here, you just talk to me. You don't try to do nothing like, and it sounds sick to say, but I'm anything at this point. And it
Yeah.
was just like, no, no, I'm like, I think he really like just hated having sex with me. I don't know. I was just very like in love with him. So it was like, it wasn't just like a quick,
I cried one time. while we were
Yeah,
having sex. It was so powerful.
I have that problem. I had that problem too, and I think that's why he was like, okay, this is too much. He used to laugh at me while we were having sex. It was sick. It was sick. It was twisted. It was demented,
Yeah.
and I'm like looking back at it, and I'm like, oh, I can't believe I did that. But
Yeah.
there's that's just like, and then that's another way that like really made my mind like I don't know, it really made my mind effed up because I'm like, okay, if you can do this with another girl then I'll just work harder. I'll make more money. I'll do whatever it is you want. I'll do anything to please you so I can have that. Like it didn't matter what it was. I'm like, I'll get surgery. I'll get a BBL. My butt is not fat enough. I'll get a bigger butt. Like I'm
Yeah.
willing to change everything I am about me just to please you, just to make you happy. And like I just want to tell anybody who's listening, like there's other men out there. Like there's other men, better looking men, men that will treat you better, men who will respect you, men who will not put you on the corner or make you sell your body or make you
Yes.
do
Or ask you for
acrobatic
anything.
like literally there's men who will treat you the way that you're supposed to be treated like royalty, who will be your partner, who will be your
Yes.
helper, who will honor you, who will respect you, not men who will treat you like dirt and make you feel like crap and make you feel like you have to do backflips in order to earn their love. Like,
Yeah.
oh no.
So with that, I think for me, uh, he manipulated me, not necessarily the sex was like it was all once a month for all of us. It wasn't like the only thing he did more was with the one girl and I knew better, so it didn't
Yeah.
bother me. And I also loved her so much and I knew where she came from that I was like, she deserves that.
Yeah.
My stuff was like, I'm hating because I want it too, not that I don't want her to have it. That was my issue.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
absolutely.
I think the manipulation for me, it came from like, well, you're the older, more mature, you run my businesses. I can have intellectual talks with you. You're smarter than them, all this stuff. So, you're my foundation. But he never gave me that bottom title. And man, that killed me. And we fought about it. And he just said, women use it to manipulate. And I'm like, but that's if you do this, I'm going to give you the title. If you do
Yeah.
this, then like,
Yeah.
if you're not going to stop doing that, then how can you be my bot? Like he always used that as manipulation, and then I never got it.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest takeaway with the sex part is after I left him, I was not healed enough, so I was still attracting users. I was still attracting guys that were like,
Hmm.
"Why are you trying to get a 9 to 5? Like you make more money doing this."
Yeah.
I was attracting pimps, and so I just recently had my very first like romantic. Felt like, and I've been in love before the game.
Yeah.
I've been in love once or twice. If I had a first love and I had a very good experience with that, thankfully, when I was
Hmm.
17, 21. But so I met this man at the bar and I never expected it to go anywhere. I always expected men that just felt like men just wanted to sleep with me. And I was still hustling. So I felt some type of way about that. I do still struggle with like, what do I tell them? Right. So
Hmm.
like I don't want them, this particular boyfriend, I never told him about the pimp. I never told him about the corner. But he didn't understand that, like, so for the first 2 or 3 months, you can't hold me. Like you're smothering me. Like get off me.
Mm.
Like it was very hard to transition into accepting love from somebody that wasn't using you. This man has never asked me for a single dime. He
Hmm.
actually paid a couple of bills that fell behind on.
Hmm.
Um, I talk in my sleep. I talk about a lot of trauma I've been through in my sleep. So like
Wow.
he'd hear stuff and be like, "What the hell?" And one time I said, you probably wouldn't, and this was me being insecure, but I said, you probably wouldn't want to be with me if you knew my past. And he looked me in my face and said, well, I have a past too, and it's okay. And that was that. So
Mm.
we still speak. It's tough now because I always go into relationships and I say it's open because I haven't been monogamous in over a decade. I don't know
Hmm.
how I would be in a monogamous relationship, so I try to be open. He did not want that. He did not like that. He did not like the sex work stuff. He did not like a lot of things, and he just like rocked with me anyways. I feel like I fell in love with him in like one time we were holding hands at the fair and I text my friend and I said, I think I have a boyfriend. I don't know. So it's like I'm still struggling with that. He's got a pretty past, and so it makes me feel safer with that. So
Hmm.
the healthier men that don't have a crazy past, I'm like, how about you?
Yeah.
But I found out he has currently has another woman that he has another romantic relationship with, and that was really hard because it was like you're my only romantic relationship, right?
Yeah.
And I have all these other friends that I'm hooking up with and having fun with, but I wasn't telling anybody I love you. I wasn't, doing all the romantic stuff with anybody else. The woman knows I exist and has tried to friend request me on social media.
Mm,
Y'all do you. Other
mm.
women don't bother me because my experience with the pimp, like other women don't bother me. I don't see them as competition, but I do have this weird, and I don't know if it's toxic, but I want something just for me. I
Yeah,
haven't had something
no,
just for me in
that's
so long.
completely normal.
So,
That's the way it should be. Monogamy should be the normal. So many like polyamorous
yes,
and all these relationships is just because people are indecisive and they are not comfortable with opening up to one person. So having multiple people
right.
prevents you from truly being vulnerable and having
Yes.
a real relationship and avoiding commitment because you have options. So no,
It's, yeah,
wanting
so
one
the
person for yourself is completely normal. Like,
well, and the poly stuff to me, I do it as and I'm not gonna lie, I still do it. So it's like I do it as a coping mechanism because I don't trust them to be monogamous. Yeah, we were rocking for about a year and some change. And some things happened. I don't need to go into details where I found out about the other woman.
mhm,
She found out about me. And it was like, okay. So now I've got him to a place where he's honest about it. And I said, no matter how devastated or hurt I'm going to be, just give me that transparency. Because one
mhm,
thing my ex folks didn't do was embarrass me in front of another chick. I always
mhm.
knew they existed. I always knew what time it was. There
Oh
was
no,
never a time
baby.
where I walked in and was like, oh, who's this?
I was
And so,
embarrassed. I was embarrassed. I was dragged. I was lied to. He was sitting there texting these other girls, calling me crazy and all types of stuff and laughing about me in my face. And I was the only one who didn't know. I was the only one who
uh,
didn't know.
yeah. But here's the thing, me saying that I've never been embarrassed doesn't mean he's a good dude. I
No,
just
yeah.
appreciate it like that, because there's times where I come home and, oh, you just met this chick like a day ago. Now she's at the house working and ready to go. Like, what's her name? Like, did you check her ID? And then it was funny because of my drug issues. He always had me do the initial interview.
Hmm.
So a lot of the women, if you were on harder drugs, he wouldn't even let you choose. So like, when's the last time you used? 3 hours ago? You got to go to detox and then call us later. So
Mm.
that was kind of like helpful. So there's a lot of things that happen
Well,
where I was
they
like,
also would get in trouble for that. People
yep,
who are using drugs are considered a liability because you never know if they will snitch on you for money or like whatever. So yeah,
right.
absolutely.
And then I
Um,
did have the one friend, she was a friend, the one that I told you had passed away.
yeah.
She ended up choosing out because she trusted me and she thought that I was quote unquote happy.
Hmm.
She tried to kill herself while she was
Wow.
with us.
Wow.
And we had done some time together. I've been busted multiple times, and she had to do time with me because she was in the room.
Yeah.
So, but it was my fault. So,
Wow.
yeah, so we came home from that, and
Mhm.
I could see her declining, but we were broke. And
Yeah.
so when she tried to kill herself, it was like, girl, like we don't have any money. We don't have time to like deal with that, right? So the
Yeah.
police had to come. The police kind of could tell there was some extra going on. There was a kid in the house. It was nuts, right?
Yeah.
Kid had been through so much that he was older, so he was in the other room like, whatever, like, drama, I don't care.
Oh my
But
goodness.
yeah, they committed her. And when she got out, him and I fought. I said, she can't come back. She's a liability, and I'm not waking up to her dead one day. So
Hmm.
he actually listened to me on that. But she felt abandoned, and she
Hmm.
was. We left her, and he tried to like tell her wherever you want to go, I'll send you. I'll give you money wherever you want to go. So
Yeah.
she wanted to stay, so
Uh,
she made it hard on herself, and it was tough because I had to abandon her. I definitely had to let her go because I needed to eat. Like I needed to be focused to go get money to make sure we were straight.
yeah.
So she took off, hit rock bottom, ended up getting help. And I found her after she got help and she would not meet me in person. And so I
Mm.
was like, cool, I understand because she knew I was still with him. And I think she thought I was trying to get her to come back.
Yeah.
And so I'm excuse my language. So I messaged her for years on
You say
Facebook.
you're
I love
persistent, yeah.
yeah, so happy birthday, Merry Christmas, how's
Hmm.
school? Now, this woman has gone through trauma therapy. This woman has got two jobs. She's going back to school. So after years of persistency, she let me meet her.
Yeah.
And it was Valentine's Day a couple years ago. So I cooked for her and we made jokes about how he taught me how to cook, all this stuff.
Mm.
Haha. She gained a lot of weight. So we kind of related on that.
Yeah.
And we used to walk together. that was my dog, man.
Yeah.
And so I cook her the dinner and I'm like, cool, we about to be besties. Like she's giving speeches, getting paid to be speeches. I was like, girl, we could talk, share a story now. Like I can say I
Yeah.
recruited you and look at like we're doing better
Yeah.
now. And she had done all these things. And so she invites me to, I'm going to get emotional, but she invites me to her college graduation.
Mm.
Didn't expect me to go.
Yeah.
I sent her a picture from the stands. She said, oh my God, you're here.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So we get outside and I'm hugging her and I'm crying. And she was like, just do it scared. And I'll never forget that because she
Mm-hmm.
was like, just do it scared. And I was like, I'm so proud of you. And then she died in a car wreck a couple months after that. And I was like, all that she went through. And she had been working since she was 14, had a whole traumatic, lost her virginity to a client,
Yeah.
pimped out, all these crazy stories underage and all this
Oh
stuff.
my
And
goodness.
I still feel like I failed her, but the universe got us right. They
Mm.
got us right before she went, so in her name, I do a lot of things. And I do feel like um, doing it scared is like a mantra for me.
Yeah.
And so 3.5 years later, I get up and I try to find out what I like and what I'm passionate about because I
Yeah.
lived through him so long. I try to,
Mm.
the men I date and I see, and it's hard to accept love, but I just had we'll call it a play partner, but a friends with benefits,
Yeah.
basically. He came visit me this weekend and he went to kiss me before he got on the train home. And I was like, just weird about it. So I'm still trying to learn how to accept love, but just by
Yeah.
the men that I'm seeing now, huge difference.
Yeah.
So like you're in the street hustling, I'm not interested. You don't have a job, you don't have your together, you can't make it to me on a date. You don't want to become friends with me, get to know me, um, or get through silly arguments or whatever. I'm not interested. So I've made a lot of improvement when it comes to the men.
Yeah.
I would love to still get married. I do not
Mm-hmm.
plan on having kids. I don't find it appropriate for me to start at 42 because I'm still dealing with a lot of mental health issues. I'm
Mm-hmm.
tired every day just with me and my dog, so I can't imagine having a baby. Um, the boyfriend that I had, I think it was more of a trauma bond than it was
Mm-hmm.
really like anything else. But he held my hand, took me on dates, made out with me. We went on trips. He paid for me to go to Vegas. He helped me with my mortgage. All these things that like I could have just dated up rather than chose up. I
Mm-hmm.
could have just dated men that were going to be good to me, but I didn't know. I didn't think I deserved that. And
Yeah.
like thinking through that in therapy, trying to figure out how I got to that place.
Yeah.
And it's hard because it's like my parents are still together. Put up with a lot of stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
that definitely manifested to me putting up with a lot of things. My dad was a hard worker and a provider, but outside of that, respectfully, mentally and emotionally, no
Yeah.
good.
Unavailable. Yeah. That's usually what causes that, at least in
But he was
childhood.
around, so it was like, oh, he's a good guy, and he is. He made
Yeah.
sure I had a roof, made sure he helped me get through school, did all these things, and even now we still
Yeah,
speak.
but
He's still
we need
my
more
mom.
than just material possessions. We need more than a roof over our head. That's what drives us to seek intimacy in these ways is because we're not
Absolutely.
getting it from the house. So
Yeah, well,
going forward, just quickly,
sure.
how do you envision your life moving forward? Like,
I definitely, always one of the biggest things to me is advocating for sex workers at all levels, right? So I definitely joined some volunteer groups and have done that. That's been really good. I want to be involved in that because the woman that's on the corner doing $40 calls versus the $1,000, we're all the same.
mm-hmm,
A lot of us have all paid pimps. A lot of us have been raped, robbed, and whatever. So,
mm-hmm,
but it does get exhausting doing that. So I'm not sure if I want to do that for a living. But I'm still trying to figure out, like I said, what it is that I know I love helping people, and I know I love event planning. So trying to find a lane with that. I get these like because I'm sober now, I can't sleep very well. So I lay up at night thinking of all these like business plans. I'd love to like own my own t-shirt company. I've done a lot of research with that. Uh, I feel like helping sex workers get out of. I just got thrown into some group where it was a bunch of girls that were like paying or had paid pimps. It was really triggering. I had to leave, but I told the group leader like if there's anybody that needs resources to leave, I would love to help with that.
mm-hmm.
But just finding a space where like I can wake up and like want to be healthier because right now it's like I've gained about most of my weight back. I would
Mm-hmm.
like to get back to the gym for me, and find ways to not be triggered by that. He like tortured me in the gym. So it's like
Mm,
trying to find ways
yeah,
that don't remind me of that and just learning to let go. It's been hard to transition completely out of the business because of the money.
yeah.
Even on a low end, I'm still making more than I would at a 9 to 5. So I'm not sure if a 9 to 5 is for me or if owning my own business is for me, but I'm kind of all over the place with that. But
Be an
what's fun for me,
entrepreneur. Be an entrepreneur.
yeah,
That's what the game. If you want to boil it down to like layman's terms, or if you want to
yeah,
label it a square business, whatever. It's
yeah,
entrepreneurship. We're our own bosses. We make our own hours. We make our own money. We're our own
yes,
managers. So that
yeah,
is
yeah,
something that has transferred into my regular life now, going from being
yeah.
being
Well,
a 304 to now. So
and if you think about it, out of all the people I've met, we are the most resilient, right? So
hmm
that's one thing I learned with him is like I can push my limits. I can work hard, and I know how to. I ran his businesses. The
Mm-hmm.
business that he has now, I can go get it myself. I know who to, because I was the face of the business. A
Mm-hmm.
white girl, sure. You know what I'm saying? Instead of
Yeah.
a tatted up dread head. You know what I'm saying? So I'm the guy that did all of the research and had all the contacts and
Yeah.
talked to the people with Italian eyes and all that stuff. So I know that I can do stuff. It's just having, I think, me just working on the discipline and consistency part. But yeah, the
Absolutely.
entrepreneurial part is a big piece that I think would be helpful.
Yeah.
I thought about your story and what you're doing, and I'm like, oh, could move to the Bronx and help you. You know, like I think about the wild.
Listen, I literally prayed to God today. I'm like, God, this is a lot of work. I need people who have the
Yeah,
same vision, who want to do things that can help me. Like there's so much that goes into having a nonprofit and having making it a successful nonprofit. Like
yeah,
I was just speaking to somebody today about that. I'm like I knew that this is something I wanted to do for a while now, but
yeah,
now actually putting in the work, getting it off the
yeah.
ground and like doing something with it, I'm like, oh, this is just the beginning. And I'm barely breaking the surface. There's so much more
That's
that
great.
needs to be done. And there's people and
That's so great.
support and all this stuff that needs to
Yeah.
be put into it. And just to spin off of that, the next question I have is for people who are, in the anti-trafficking organization who are doing research and who want to help with prevention and education, what are some recommendations or resources or things that you think that people would need fresh out the game or just in general to help them transition into living a normal, a quote unquote, normal life?
Hmm. That one's tough because I'm still, and I do appreciate that I can come on here and actively talk about still being in the
Hmm.
business. So I
Yeah.
appreciate that because a lot of times they don't want you to talk about it like that.
Yeah.
That one's tough because I mean, it's like they do that here. They give you the resources as far as life skills and
Hmm.
getting an education, but I had all of that.
Yeah.
So maybe,
So what's the barrier you think between you, just as an example, being
I
done
guess
with the game
maybe
full time and like living a normal life? If you want, let's say, yeah, you were trying to completely be done with the game and not do sex work of any sort. Where's that barrier? What is causing the divide between you and that complete freedom? I want to say.
yeah, I think besides the money is just the opportunities out there 9 to 5 wise just aren't paying that well.
Hmm.
I think that I did have one agency consider my street lived experience as experience that I could put on a resume. So like
Yeah.
having an opportunity to say, hey, there's this 10-year gap on my resume, but I I sold, I won't want to say I sold myself, but like
Mm-hmm.
all the things that we have to do to book calls,
Mm-hmm.
and I tell the women this all the time in the class I speak to, all of that is transferable skills. So, I don't, more of like self-esteem and confidence stuff, but I think that there's groups out there for that. That's a tough question because it's like,
Yeah.
I feel like it's easy to answer, but then when I think about something tangible that they can do,
Mm-hmm.
because it's like there's all different types of resources, but I think the mental health maybe more or easier access to counselors that are like actually trained to work with sex workers, trained to work with
Yeah.
sex workers that have paid pimps, because I've never found a counselor that has had that experience.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
that's
but the mental
definitely
health,
that's good.
yeah, the mental health piece is important. I think, maybe for those that actually do want to own their own business, but hey, I only have an eighth grade education. I told those ladies too, Google is everything. The internet, you can all the things you taught yourself on how to work the street or how to I the same thing with touring on the United States. I taught myself that. He never taught me
Mm-hmm.
that. You know what I'm saying? So all those skills could be transferred into running your own business, but building that confidence to do so and getting access to maybe grants or money to do that. Because
Mm-hmm.
it's like we're thinking, well, we got to do sex work to invest in that when we don't necessarily have to do that. So maybe
Mm-hmm.
having more resources to do that
Mm-hmm.
or just better opportunities. Because like even on the track, I'm making more money than 18 to 20 an hour. You know what I'm saying? Even though
Mm-hmm.
the track is awful and I, haven't been
Yeah.
out there in a million years, but maybe that confidence piece, because a lot of these, I
Mm-hmm.
guess I can only speak for myself and say a lot of these ladies, but I'm tired. I'm burnt out. So just
Mm-hmm.
having maybe, because we have a support group here, but it's once a month. So maybe more support groups or maybe more groups geared towards
Yeah.
women that have been in the business. And there are those resources, but I don't
Yeah.
know, stuff, maybe something more specific for
Yeah.
sex workers or sex workers who have paid pimps. I
Yeah.
have one friend left that's been in the business, and I can't let her go even though she's toxic because of that connection. So being around
Yeah.
people that are actually doing stuff, because I want to be around business owners. I want to be around ladies that are handling business, but then they
Mm-hmm.
look at me like, they find out about my past or they hear a little something about
Yeah.
what I do. It's like,
Oh
so.
Lord.
uh,
No, yeah.
but pay one thing, pay us for our stories. That
Mm,
I felt really
mm.
respected when I was paid to share because if you guys want us to share some of the worst trauma, and it's like, oh, here's a flowers, or something.
Yeah.
It's like, and
Yeah.
I don't mind sharing my story for free, but being paid, it's like you respect the fact that like it's a
Yeah.
big deal to share this in front of 100 people or whoever you're
Yeah.
speaking. You know,
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah. Oh,
So with that being said, I just want to say thank you so much for sharing everything that you did and for taking the time out today to
yeah,
open up as much as you did and for having the space to feel comfortable to share
yeah.
everything that you did.
I do want to say for the listeners that if you're going through hell, keep going. Uh, that light at the end of the tunnel, it's there. It's just
Mhm,
sometimes you can't see it, but you got to keep pushing, just like you push
mhm,
through those hard days trapping or whatever you want to
mhm,
call it, right? And I think that a big message too that I'd like to impart is listen to your body and your intuition. I thought my intuition was failing me a lot of times when I got raped
mhm,
and robbed. No, I was not tapping in and listening to the messages my body was sending me. So
mhm,
learning how to regulate your emotions, learning how to listen to those messages your body is sending will save
mhm.
your life. Because
Absolutely.
I expected my intuition to scream at me. No,
No, it's
there
a
was these little
whisper.
nudges. I just ignored them. Don't
It's a
ignore that.
whisper.
Don't ignore the red flags, things
Hmm.
like that. But I think too, the mental health piece and just self-care. Like when's the last time you put your feet in some sand and some water,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
even with those that are like Christian, like yourself, tapping into the power of,
Yeah.
I pray, I don't necessarily have the same viewpoint as you do as
Yeah.
far as the higher
Hmm.
power, but I still pray to somebody and I
Hmm.
still believe there's somebody that's looking out for me. And then
Yeah.
of course my ex-wifey is my guardian angel. So
Yeah.
yeah, I text her all the time and she's gone, but I
Yeah.
feel like that
Yeah.
communication. So there's a lot of different things that you can do to be better and just know it gets better, even though I shared a bunch of traumatic. I do want to say that like even on my worst day now
Hmm.
is nothing compared to giving up my financial freedom. So
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
yeah.
And
Thank you for doing this. Thank you for having me.
no problem.
And thanks for sharing, your perspective because it was like,
Hmm.
all programs are different, but to
Yeah.
understand they're still the same. It's still
Yeah.
never enough. Still never enough, regardless of who you're working.
Mhm. Yeah, and as she was saying, for the girls listening to their intuition, something that I've learned too, being a Christian, is that the devil is loud. God is a gentleman. God is a whisper. God, that intuition for me, I learned in my experience all the times that I knew something that was just so on point and it seemed so strange to me was the Holy Spirit was
Yeah.
and a lot of people notify it as like your intuition, but like the Holy
Yeah.
Spirit was telling me this is wrong. This is wrong. Like when I
Yeah.
tell you there were things that I knew, like I knew about my trafficker when he was trying to lie to me and tell me that he wasn't doing something. I knew exactly what he was doing. And anytime I called
Right.
him out on, he would gaslight me. So don't ignore that
Right.
that small whisper because even though it's a whisper, that's all it that's
That's all
that's
you need.
that's God's
Yeah.
way of telling you that's all you need to know. He doesn't need to scream, he doesn't need to get loud. He's gonna
Right.
tell you. And sometimes there are signs right in your face telling you, but we
And
like to convince ourselves that it's not true. We like to hold on to that hope
right.
that things are gonna get better with them, but
Well,
most of
and
the
one
time
thing,
things are gonna get better without them, and you have to move on.
yeah, well, and letting that go for sure.
Hmm.
But I think one last piece too is be that renegade and be that fag. Okay. Don't let that stop you from leaving because it's like I tell girls in the class all the time, if you cannot tuck, it doesn't matter. Make a plan and get out broke. You will be fine. And you're not
Yeah,
broke. You're just temporarily out of money. Okay. You got to
period.
word it differently,
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
they do that manipulation of, oh, you're a fag if you're a leave, or oh, you're a renegade if you don't pay somebody. I'll be all of that before I ever go back to that life. So I don't want to fuck
Mhm.
shit because it really doesn't matter. So
Amen. Amen. All right. Thank you guys for tuning in. Have a good one.